Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome to 5 and 9 in a one-stop co-op shop, where I go over 5 things you need to know about a game in about 9 minutes or less. I'm going to aim for that. Today I'm going to talk about Oceans from North Star Games. It's for 2 to 4 players with an associated solo mode that's sold separately that I'll discuss in this review. It is a card-playing, engine-building game in which you are in charge of an ecosystem of marine life way under the sea. You are trying to build up so that you can build species that are thriving, can search out limited resources, and also resist threats from the other players. This one is an evolution, so to speak, of the previous line from North Star Games called Evolution, in which you're doing similar things with land-based animals. I would say Oceans is kind of the blown out version of that, more complex, more interactions. How does it compare? Let's go to the videotape and find out. Disclaimer, I was provided a review copy of Oceans and the solo expansion by the publisher. My number 5, a rather surprising to me but enthusiastic pro, is a solo mode. A lot of times, solo modes that are expansions to base games tend to add a fair bit of rules complexity to accomplish its goals. This one does everything you want with a solo mode, challenge you, make you change up your play style while remaining relatively simple. The secret is in these upgrade tokens. So during the evolve phase, you're going to take one token and place it on the relevant board. So in this particular case, I have a lot of red tokens. So the shark is going to get some love, which means an aggressive bot that you have to deal with. Sometimes green tokens show up and the whale gets fatter and more able to eat more fish, which makes the race aspect for fish in the reef that much more apparent. There's other kinds of tokens like the leeching tokens and transparency and different power-ups depending on what you're playing. In addition, in a massive improvement from when Mike played his original playthrough, now the tokens are tiered. So if you want to play that easier intro game, start with level 1, it goes up to level 2, 3, 4, and 5 to increase that challenge. Again, without adding a lot of rules bloat, so you can really focus on what you're doing and react to the bot. Really well done. My number 4, a mix overall, is that this game can be overwhelming in a number of ways. First of all, there is the level of mechanical interaction, which I'll get to in a future point, that can overwhelm a person who is not immersed in the game. Also, from a componentry perspective, it is a very fiddly game, feeding and doing the different things. And sometimes I might mess up with the fish. In my score pile, I have this giant pile of fish. It can get scattered somewhere. Heaven forbid they kind of get into my play area. Not sure what's going on there. As I'm reaching into the reef, sometimes I end up jostling this thing, messing things up. That could just be a quality of life complaint, but because of the way the game works, because there's points all over the place, one little mess up could actually interrupt your strat, or at least make it harder for you to focus. So it's a mix. Not everybody is going to have that problem, but I definitely want to flag it for my number 4. My number 3, a clear pro, is the theme integration, the sense of ecosystem that arises from the cards. This game does so much to teach itself, make itself intelligible because things make sense. So the parasite before feeding, I'm latched onto the whale, I'm sucking up stuff from the whale, nom nom. That's even before I feed. Now I have a speed fish. They're going to go ahead and attack something, and then the bottom feeder kind of gets in there, takes fish. You can imagine that my attack fish just left a whole bunch of detritus, and the bottom feeder is there to pick up the scraps. There are so many of those little interactions that just make sense. Now, this game gets compared often to Wingspan, really because of the nature theme. There's not a lot of nature-themed engine building games. In a way, it's not a fair comparison. They're doing very different things. However, in this one area of how the game brings you into a sense of its animal world, I feel like Oceans does an excellent job. Definitely second to none in that regard. My number 2, and I'm going to go pro on this, but this is the point that could make or break someone's experience of Oceans. It is the level of interaction, particularly the attacking. So first, the interactions just between the cards, this triggers this triggers this, should I keep a track of this, etc. That is all going on. In addition, this is a very attacky game. Even in solo, if you get a situation like this with the shark board, they're coming at you with 11 strength, say goodbye. All those interactions that you set up, if you're not careful with your defense, it could just wipe out your entire ecosystem. That might not feel good. In addition, in the multiplayer game, especially when you get to the higher player counts, you might have a situation where people are flying in there, taking all your species. They're firing off combos off of their attacks. You go and then someone asks you, hey, did you get 3? Whatever, I have a whale cleaner. Goes back to that point that I said earlier of feeling overwhelming, but in a way that can totally break what you got going on, and it might feel very frustrating. However, the plus side is if you're able to manage a lot of that, set up proper defense, identify which species you can sacrifice to save the rest of the ecosystem, and just adjust to what's going on, the game does give you those tools, so when you're able to make that happen, it feels really satisfying. My number one, a massive pro, is the arc of complexity in Oceans. So in the first half of the game, you're mostly going to be playing from this deck. There aren't that many of these cards, there's just a lot of copies of them, so you're going to make species that are kind of relatively similar from game to game. I've heard some reviewers call that a little bit boring, stale. I get that, but I like having that slow onboarding, and also I know what's coming. So you get to the mid game, you get the Cambrian Explosion. Now you can play 2 cards on a turn, and you have access to this deck of advanced cards. These are all unique. So you have advanced versions of cards like the Parasitic, as opposed to borrowing from one, you can borrow from 2 sides, or Heart or Shell, or powers that really change your meta or your strategy, or that provide the key to whatever you were already working on. This deep deck does an amazing job. It makes me excited for the expansion that I have not played, which is the Legends expansion, but there's more of these, more interactions. Bring it on, my number one. I remember playing the original Evolution in 2014 and thinking, all right, this is a pretty cool system. Let's see where it goes. Little did I know. I really appreciate when publishers realize they have something and iterate and give different expressions of it and try to bring whatever they have to its fullest potential. I truly believe that Oceans does that. This is not a case where they're releasing sets and sets just to kind of build on the IP. Every single shot that they've taken serves a different audience. Oceans in particular serves that more hardcore audience that wants higher interaction, that doesn't mind getting wiped out by some attacking, doesn't mind kind of all the interactions and everything. It is what it is. So I do have a positive review for this, but I do have to put the asterisk that it is not for everybody. If what you saw does not sound appealing to you, there's other games in the line that are a little bit ratcheted down in complexity or that have a little bit less attacking. As a matter of fact, in Oceans, the rule book, they tell you if you don't like certain cards, take them out. If you want a less attacky game or if you want a more attacky game, whatever it is, Oceans is there for you to mold. So a really good recommendation for me overall. If this kind of game appeals to you, once again, it is my sincere hope that I've shown enough of the game so that you can make a decision about whether this fits in your gaming life. This is Jason with the One Stop Co-op Shop, reminding that we'll see you at the next stop.